Hey guys, Kory here with GillzGoneWild. We're here today to do a video and talk to you guys a little bit about fluorocarbon lime. It seems like fluorocarbon is somewhat of a controversial type of line, and I don't know that controversial is really the right word, but it gets a bad rap a lot of times. People will use it and have a bad experience with it and swear it off altogether. And most of the time, the bad experiences come from one or two problems. The first one being, a lot of times guys will buy the cheapest fluorocarbon that they can find because they're not sure if they're really even going to like fluorocarbon at all. So they're going to try to get in at the cheapest price point that they can, and they end up getting an inferior line, or they just use it incorrectly. They'll tie improper knots, or they won't take care of the line the right ways. And you know, that's where most of the bad experiences seem to come from. And I just want to address some of that. You know, the first thing I'm going to tell you is fluorocarbon can seem like it's more expensive up front. You know, you go down the aisle at Bass Pro where all the line is, and you'll see you can buy a 200-yard spool of Suffix monofilament for $8.99 or $9.99, or you can buy a 200-yard spool of Seagar or Braze X for $23.99 or whatever it is. Definitely, that seems like the fluorocarbon is a lot more expensive. But what you got to remember is, if you take care of fluorocarbon and you know, if you take good care of it and you don't just leave it out in all kinds of weather and stuff like that, like I don't know who does that, but as long as you take good care of fluorocarbon and just take a few precautionary measures, fluorocarbon is going to outlast most monofilaments. So that upfront cost, where it seems so expensive, it kind of pays you back on the back side of it as long as you guys take care of it. So that's the first thing that I want to talk about. When it comes to the brands, I don't want to sit up here and just tell you guys a specific brand to use or anything like that. I'll tell you though, just buy one of the bigger name brands out there. You know, you've got Seagar, Sunline, Suffix makes a good one. There's a bunch of good quality lines. Berkeley Trilene's another one. Good quality lines. There's a bunch of them. And then you've got your cheaper lines. You know, I mean, you go down there and you say, well, I can get it's $23 for a spool of Seagar, and I can get a spool of Bubba Frank's, you know, basement budget fluorocarbon for $9.99. I'm going to go with that because I don't even know if I'm going to like fluorocarbon at all. And so it just makes sense to go with the cheapest one, right? Well, if you do that, you're asking for trouble, guys. You're going to get an inferior line. You're going to get a line that's going to give you a lot of problems. But don't do that and have a bad experience with it and then swear off fluorocarbon altogether. All fluorocarbon's junk. I bought some one time and had a terrible experience. You know, if I bought a Chevy pickup and had nothing but trouble with it, which I would expect if I bought a Chevy, but if I was to buy a Chevy pickup and had nothing but trouble with it, I'm not going to swear off pickup trucks altogether, right? It's just, I'm going to go buy a different brand. I'm going to buy a Ford like I should have done in the first place. But okay, you guys can blast me in the comments down below or whatever, but you get what I'm saying. The point being, just because that Chevy pickup was a piece of junk doesn't mean all pickups are. And just because that $9 spool of fluorocarbon was a piece of junk doesn't mean that all fluorocarbon is either, guys. So and I'm not saying you guys got to go spend $100 on a 200-yard spool of line. That's not what I'm getting at. I'm just saying buy a good quality line. And you'll hear me say this a lot in the videos that we do. Buy the best quality that you can afford. And that means if you can afford $25 for a spool of fluorocarbon and you're prepared to pay that, don't go buy an $8 spool of fluorocarbon because it's cheaper. Okay, it's going to be a pain. All right, buy once, cry once. I say that a lot too. You know, if you can't afford a $25 spool of line, but you're really wanting to try fluorocarbon, hold off on buying any until you can either find it on sale, a good quality line on sale, or until you can save up the rest of the money to buy a good quality line. You'll be doing yourself an injustice if you do anything else. I promise you guys that. So that's the first thing, is buy a good quality line. The second thing is the improper use of it. There's a lot of different types of fluorocarbon out there. And when I say types, I don't know if that's the right way to explain it, but look at like Seagar. Seagar, you've got Red Label, Seagar Invis X, and you got a Braze X, and probably some more that I'm not even familiar with. The same thing goes with Sunline. They've got several different fluorocarbons. They've each got different characteristics. Some are going to be more abrasion resistant than others. Others are not going to have as much memory as others. And so you need to look at what you're trying to use this line for, and then do some research and pick out which one fits that scenario, that situation the best. If I'm flipping and I'm wanting to use fluorocarbon, obviously I'm probably going to be flipping around some stuff that is going to be kind of tough on line. So I want something that's abrasion resistant, but I can deal with a little bit of memory. You know, there's a trade-off there, but it's in that situation, that's a good trade-off. If I'm wanting to drop shot, or if I'm wanting to throw a shaky head or something like that, memory is probably the last thing I want to deal with. So I may opt for something with low memory, but not quite as abrasion resistant. So do your guys' research there and make sure that you're getting a line that's going to suit your needs, and make sure you're using the line for its intended purpose. I'm not going to name the brand here, and some of you guys may be able to guess this. Years ago, there's a big name company that had a fluorocarbon line out on the market, and it was like a plague. People were, every fishing forum I got on, people were just throwing a fit about how this line was breaking, and they're having all kinds of problems with it. And I'm not talking about 2 or 3 people, I'm talking about 20, 30 that I seen on different sites. I mean, it's a bunch. And come to find out, this line was actually intended to for a leader. That's all it was. It was a leader line. It wasn't intended to be spooled onto a reel and thrown crankbaits and stuff like that. People were using it improperly, and then they were all upset about how the line, you know, failed them. So make sure that you guys are using the line for its intended purpose, and make sure you're getting a line that's going to suit your needs, and you know, go forward from there. So a few tips about using fluorocarbon. One of the things you guys are going to hear about is, with bad experiences with fluorocarbon, is going to be memory. Okay, memory basically just means a line it gets kind of kinky, it wants to loop up and stuff like that. That's memory that's built into the line from the line being on a spool a lot. And so that line sits on that spool for a week, 2 weeks, a month, whatever it is, and it builds up a memory. That line wants to stay in that shape. You got to get that memory out of it, and there's ways that you can get most of the memory out of it. I don't know if you're ever going to just totally eliminate it, but you can make it to where it's definitely manageable. The first thing you can do is use a very good line conditioner. The only one that I use is KVD line and lure conditioner. It's done a fabulous job for me for several years. I know there's some others out there. There's Ardent Real Butter and Real Magic, to name a few, and there's more than that. I don't know how they all work. What I can tell you is that the KVD line and lure conditioner does a bang up job for me, and I'll use it in a few different ways. I'll use it initially when we spool the line onto the reel. What I do is I get a bucket and I'll fill it with warm water. I don't want it boiling hot. I don't want anything that's going to damage the line, but just good warm water. And I'm going to set the spool of line down in that bucket of warm water, and that's going to help the line relax a little bit as it's coming off the spool onto your reel. The other thing we do is my wife will help me. We'll take a rag and soak it with KVD line and lure conditioner. Excuse me. And then she's going to grab the line as it's coming out of that bucket of warm water, and that line's going to run through her hand, which has got the rag soaked with that KVD line and lure conditioner, and that's going to help kind of get that line to relax even further. Then every so often, usually about a quarter of the way, and then halfway, and then 3/4 full, and then when the reel's completely full, at all those intervals, I'm going to spray the spool with KVD line and lure conditioner. It's going to help it relax. Okay, that's when you're spooling your line onto your reel initially. Beyond that, as you're using it, if you start noticing some memory getting built up in your reel, it's not a huge deal. We can get that out. A couple different ways to do this. The way that I try to do it, because it seems to work the best, is if I can do it here at the house, I'll cut my bait off the end of it and have my wife grab the end of the line. I'll punch the button on the reel and just have her take off walking, and she'll walk all the line off that reel. I'll engage the reel, and we'll sit there. We'll play tug of war with each other for a little bit, and we'll just, fluorocarbon doesn't have a lot of stretch, but you'll get some of the stretch out of it. And then I'll have her just drop the line on the ground. I'll put tension on the line in front of the reel, and I'll just spool it back up. And as I'm reeling that in, all the memory's coming out of that line, or most of it. It's almost like you can have a reel that's almost unfishable, and after you do that, it's almost like you just freshly spooled the line on the reel. So it makes a great big difference. And again, use KVD line and lure conditioner as I'm doing that too. Another tip is, if you run into the same problem, and say you're on the water in the boat, Do the same thing we just talked about, but this time utilize your trolling motor. Kick your trolling motor up on high and just stand on it, man. Just get to cooking across that cove and let all your line, off your reel, off into the water beside the boat. When you get all your line off there, close the reel and just coast for a little bit. After 20 or 30 yards of that, then start reeling your line back on, putting tension in front of the reel on the line, and it'll take that memory out of it. So you're basically accomplishing the same thing that we were doing at the house, but you're doing it on the water, and your line's going on the reel wet, which seems to make a big difference for me. One final tip: if you guys are putting fluorocarbon on a spinning reel, pay close attention to what direction the line is going to wind onto your spinning reel. If you guys will notice, like if I'm holding the spinning rod right here and I got the reel, as I crank it, that arm is either going to turn clockwise or it's going to turn counterclockwise. And it may not be different from one reel to the next. It may be different from one reel to the next. So pay attention, because all two reels may not be the same, or any two reels may not be the same. And you want to pay close attention to what direction this reel's turning. And then take your spool of line and lay it down to where the line is coming off the spool in the same direction that it's going to be going onto your reel. And that's going to do a good job of, you're not fighting the memory that's already built into the line from setting on the spool. And you'll see a big difference that way too. So, and again, the letting your line out and stretching it, or letting it out when you're on the water and letting it drag behind the boat, both of those tips are going to work on the spinning reel as well. So those aren't just for bait casters. Anyways, I guess that's going to wrap up our fluorocarbon video. If you guys were on the fence about whether or not you wanted to use fluorocarbon, or how to even get into fluorocarbon, hopefully this video helps you out. And if you guys have any more questions, email us. Let us know. We'll see what we can do to help you guys out. So anyways, for more product reviews and how-to videos, check us out over at GillzGoneWild.com. Thank you guys.